glad you're here. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Amanda Chaco. I'm the Director of Entrepreneurship at Lakeshore Advantage. And this is our business incubator. We've just launched a few months ago, and we work with entrepreneurs primarily on product and technology startups, but we are, certainly invite others to the community. And then we also have people in the space that are our mentors and partners, such as Jen is one of our mentors. We do all kinds of programming, from proof of concept, business coaching, founder roundtables, lunch and learns like you're at now, and more. And I could have conversations with anybody that wants more information after, but we'll get right to Jen. So Jen and her husband, they've recently moved here from Boulder, where she was very active in the Boulder startup community. She's helped build iconic brands and launch numerous CPG successfully
Consumer
in the marketplace.
packaged goods, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Because I'm holding my glasses and not wearing them.
No. You're doing great, you're doing great.
This is what I do. I'm surprised they're not on my head. Okay, so Jen has Fortune 100 CPG experience and has founded, run, and reinvented a thriving production and marketing company for over 20 years with clients including Google, Rudy's Organic Bakery, Hope Foods, Stonefire Bakery, Good Karma Foods, and Kelsey, and I'm sure more.
Yes.
And today she's going to talk about branding for startups, so please welcome Jen.
Nice to meet you all. Thank you for spending your Friday lunch with me, even if it is just for the free sandwiches, or some of you might be early, I think, for happy hour. That's at 4:30 today or something. But anyway, let's have fun today. I have worked, just like Amanda said, on some pretty big brands, but wanted to kind of give you some insight today into branding and really do some exercises with you that will hopefully really help you to empower your own brand. So I'm going to try to keep things really simple, and I would love to have this group be interactive, be participatory. I just don't want to kind of sit up here and have a one-way presentation. So hopefully we can jump in and shout out anything at any time. So I would love to get to know the room a little bit as well. It totally helps me. My background is super focused on more food and beverage brands that you would find in your grocery stores. But I would love to hear kind of from everybody what your name is, and either your business category or product or company or anything you want to kind of say about yourself would be super helpful. Who wants to start?
I can start.
Okay.
I'm Jordan Vanderham. I'm in the industrial personal production equipment and consumer brands. My company Rindy.
Great.
My name is Katie. I'm with Community Action House, which is a local nonprofit, and I'm our communications manager.
I'll go next. I'm Carol. I have been a caregiver for a while, so now I'm kind of expanding to girls caring and coaching. When I coach parents who are homeschooling kids with special needs, I just finished doing that for 12 years. So.
Hello, I'm Jeff Elaine. I just quit my job at a bank last week. And I'm going to be going out and doing cybersecurity assessments for financial institutions. So I've been doing it for one bank for several years now, and so I'm going to go out and do it for others.
Sorry, so Todd Gertis, I'm the owner and founder of Row One. We're a manufacturer of home theater seating for residences. We sell B2B, three-time entrepreneur, and excited to be here and share out. So,
my name is Eric Oliver. I'm in the software startup space, online sales primarily, marketing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hi guys, I'm Mark DeRue. I'm with Keystone Coaching and Consulting, and I work with senior leaders, high potential leaders, or the occasional problem kid in the organization.
Great.
I'm Pete Hawkswell. I'm the Superintendent of Broadband Services for the Holland Board of Public Works. We're in the middle of an information and education program right now to explore the decision to build fiber to every single property in the city of Holland. My branding exercise is on the table in front of you, there in that pamphlet, as we've been working to engage with our community on this important decision. For fun, I run Lakeshore Makers, which is a organization here in town that looks to connect the community with resources to learn, make, discover, and that is probably my interest today, is how can I take my all-volunteer organization and apply. We have a brand already, but what can we do to enhance that brand to meet our mission?
Nice, great.
I'm David Walters. I own Tech to My Door. It's a smart home company, and I'm actively involved here at the Search Center with my project called Unity, which is working to bring, make the smart home more accessible and make things work together better.
Great. Fabulous. Okay. We are going to jump into some brand trivia just to get warmed up a little bit. And if you wouldn't mind, just jot down your answers, and then I'm just going to there's only 4 questions, so whoever gets all 4 right gets an hour with me if you want to even talk more about your brand. So 4 questions. If you just jot down your answers, I'll read them out loud. So what is the #1 brand in the world? Coca-Cola, Amazon, Nestle, or Apple? Let me know when you're on it. What did Nike's famous swoosh logo cost? A is 10,000. Oh, shoot, that should be B is 0. Sorry. C is $35, and D is unknown. Okay, on to what does the arrow signify in Amazon's logo? A is packages coming your way. B is A to Z products available to you. C is Amazon goes that distance to make customers happy. And D is innovation forward. Okay, last question. How long does it take for a consumer to form an opinion of a company? A is 10 seconds, B is 5 minutes, C is 1 week, D is 1 second.
Is this common knowledge for you?
What do you mean?
Like
Like, did
are
I
these
create these
normal,
questions?
Are these normal facts that you know?
I've run different trivia games with branding, and so I just kind of have a whole library of questions. But no, they're all Googleable or whatever. Yeah. I didn't make them up or anything. There are actual answers. Okay, so the answer to #1 is Apple. So the answer is D. Apple ranks in 260 billion brand revenue, followed by actually Google that has 145 billion. That's that answer. Nike's logo cost $35. A student created it, and that's all he ever got for that famous iconic logo. The company actually did give him like a diamond encrusted logo or something like before he died or something like that. But he got really nothing out of that. Out of that deal. So Amazon. So the correct answer is C. Amazon really, their whole brand stands for the smile, and so that is their mission, and that is what was built into that graphic part of their logo. And the answer to this guy is A. It takes 10 seconds for a consumer to form an opinion of a company. And there's a lot of tools that are used, brand recall, brand sentiment, on social media that do exactly that. So if you are not in the branding world or haven't really studied brand, branding can be kind of something that's vague. And so what I would like to kind of just point out are some things that I hear a lot, that, I really wanna just make sure that we kind of talk about what a brand is not. So, a brand is not your logo at all. A lot of people kind of think like, oh, I started my company, I got a logo, check off, the branding box. That is absolutely not true. Your logo is part of your brand set of assets, but it doesn't mean that your logo is your whole brand. A brand is also not something that you just pay somebody else to do. I mean, it can be, of course, an expensive thing. You can make it into a high-level project. But really, as a founder of your own company, you should be the one that is creating your brand DNA and your brand code. That doesn't cost any money, and we've got some exercises here today that are going to show you that. And then a brand also should not be lazy. So branding is a verb. Brand is active. It takes a lot of participation. It's about being curious. It's about getting feedback from consumers. So it is an activity, and people that kind of don't focus on their brand first don't have customers that are engaged and connected, and their sales, follow that. So we want strong brands, we want engaged consumers, and we want healthy sales. Okay, so what is a brand then? So branding is building your company's ownable set of equities to connect with consumers. So, a really important word in here is ownable. A lot of people think that they have a service or a product, that might even be a little bit unique, and you're just gonna go after, the functionality of that, right? That's fine, but guess what? There's other people that are gonna play in that space probably at some point. So you really need to focus on an ownable set of equities, right? So, you don't want to just be advertising or marketing your category, if that makes sense. A set of equities. So, again, these equities over here include your image, your identity, your brand awareness, your customer perception, brand loyalty, and brand association. So all of these are components that are connective to your consumer set, to your target audience. And so this is a whole exercise of building these equities. So really, brand building is equity building, and that's why it is an investment, and there is an ROI to it, and we call that return on brand. And that is companies that have spent time and attention and purpose building brands. And then brand also drives all of your touch points to consumers, and that should also be ownable, right? So that's the expression part. So if you have a strong brand, then it's easier for you to build out your creative assets, your logo, your taglines, your messaging, your sales materials, your advertising, So brand is a compass for all of those touch points and those expressions. Okay, so the first exercise that we're gonna do together is we went around the room and you told me what your businesses were about, right? But we're gonna dive in a little deeper and try to uncover your company's higher purpose. So we're gonna go through some of these examples. These are all brands that I've worked on. And really the exercise is, what are you really selling, right? Like, you think you're selling one thing, what are you really selling? So, for example, Home Depot, right? What do they sell? You walk in Home Depot, they've got, hammers, nails, lumber, like whatever, any kind of, products for home improvement. But they're not really selling that. What they're selling is empowerment. They're selling, let's do this together, right? The consumer that prefers Home Depot over like Lowe's or other big box stores, they have that attitude, that can-do attitude, that empowerment. That's why they choose to be a Home Depot loyal shopper or brand advocate. Coca-Cola, so of course they sell soda and other types of drinks. But really, throughout the years, and that's such a legacy brand, all of their campaigns ladder up to happiness, and they own happiness. So if Pepsi is trying to get into happiness space, there's no way that they can win. Dove. So this is a very disruptive brand. You know, before they positioned themselves this way, everything in the beauty industry was, you know, perfect and airbrushed, and, you know, everybody looked, you know, again, like unrealistic. So Dove came through and said, okay, sure, absolutely, they're selling beauty products, they're selling soap, they're selling deodorant, right? But what are they really, really selling? They're really selling acceptance and real women and real life and showing that and being proud of that. So that's what they're really selling. So moving on to Tostitos. Again, sure you guys are catching on, smart audience, but you know, of course they sell corn chips and tortilla chips, right? But what they're really selling is getting the party together and being the life of the party. And so everyone gathers around those Tostitos. So they're selling socialization, participation, the party, right? Same thing with Applebee's. They have a pretty good menu, you know, whatever, they're selling food. But they're really selling that sense of neighborhood spirit, right? I think like when things started opening up after COVID, I mean, that's the first place people went is Applebee's, right? It was like, I miss my neighborhood, I miss my people, you know, and that was their sense of community connection. Like if Applebee's is closed, oh my God, what are we supposed to do? So that's what they're really selling is neighborhood connection. Corona, so many beers out there, right? They have really carved out the space. Of course, they're selling beer, but they have really carved out the space of escapism, vacation, 5 o'clock somewhere. That's exactly where your mind goes, and that is the spirit and the essence of their brand that they're selling. So that exercise is to kind of ladder up to an emotional level, like what might your higher purpose be as a company, right? So you have certain products and everything, but think about what are you really selling, and take that. Of course, you're not going to create like a direct ad campaign out of that, right? But it is going to inform your marketing, your tone, your style, and it's going to challenge you a little bit to get out of the box of functional, right? So you want to get out of the box of functional all the time, and you want to start to layer in higher purpose and values, and that's what's going to help define and grow your brand. Any questions about this? Does anything like come to mind of like clicking a little bit of like what you think your higher purpose is? Does anyone want to share or comment?
I think, you know, with Lakeshore Makers, our mission is to connect people to resources, to learn, discover, and make things. So it's all about discovery. But when you're talking about this, it's like get out of your own mind and get into your customers or your focused client's mind. What is the value of your organization to them? If you can see through their eyes, what do they see in your company, and then create your brand around that.
Right. Like what are they getting out of that, right? Like your mission is that way. It's going towards them.
Yeah.
What is the two-way street coming back, right?
Yeah.
Like that's what I think a lot of people just sort of miss. And one-way brands, you know, they don't do very well because there's not that feedback loop, there's not that connectivity, and there's not that engagement to open up conversations and connections, and that's what you constantly want back. So thank you, you said it in a great way, is that, you know, you really want to understand what is the consumer really getting beyond your product.
It's neat to hear the get out of functional.
Yeah.
Because that's, when you're small, that's what you focus on. It's, hey, we help you with this.
Yep.
But I'm thinking of our website, it's like, ooh, where can we have little tweaks or refinements to move the items?
Exactly, and you know, short game, sure, that's fine, you have to do that, especially if you have a product that no one's familiar with or something like that, and you have to explain and of course lead with your product. However, long game is you really wanna start creating this equity set, so that if you have an innovation pipeline, you're coming out with new products, okay, what are you gonna do then? Just talk about that product? It's like you need to create a brand that can house, multiple products that you can launch. And you're exactly right, you need to start thinking beyond just product focus, because where are those bigger conversations about values and about, relationships and things that consumers really, causes, things that they really want to know that, you're more than just selling a product, right? Like, I get it, you have a good product, but what else is there? Why else should we be connecting? Okay, so I wanted to make a point here as well. So the top brands in the world have one thing in common, and it is that they are human, really. They've been humanized, and that's what a lot of branding actually comes down to. So, I hear a lot of people say, oh, I got this brand, I got my brand together, it's perfect, shiny logo, with, my tagline, and, I'm done. It's like, well, okay, fine, but that's not really that fun. Brands actually can have attributes of being imperfect, right? Humans are imperfect. Brands can be imperfect, like, that's okay. That's why consumers relate to them on a psychological level. You want to root for struggling brands. You want to share their journey. You want to be a part of what they're doing. So that is all about building in these human attributes of being, imperfect. Having empathy as well. Some of the biggest brands and most popular brands out there have empathy. You think of the Chick-fil-A commercial, the cow that's like, eat more chicken, right? You think of the progressive campaigns for car or for insurance where, it's like, we understand you don't want to end up like your parents, right? So those are campaigns, but I will guarantee you, because I've worked on a lot of those brands, that is built into the brand DNA. This notion of empathy for your consumer target, right? So that is a main connection that all brands have. And then likability too. So I don't know, some people you like, some people you don't really. Same with brands, right? Some brands you really like, some brands you don't. And that is basically, a challenge for you to put likability into your brand. How can you make your brand likable? So that is one of the challenges with brand. So does that make sense that brands can take on human-like qualities, and they should? Okay, so one of the ways that we achieve this, this is how we humanize brands, so I'm gonna pass these out, is through archetypes. Has anyone seen archetypes before? Familiar with these? They're mostly used in psychology and in all of the creative arts, writing books, writing movies. Archetypes are universal personas and characters. So these help us humanize brands. There's books written on this. You can really dive deep into archetypes. I have another page as well that kind of blow these out into more detail. But really, archetypes work like this. So we, as ourselves, as humans, identify with one of these. So you can kind of look at it this way and think about, who out of these 12 do I kind of identify? Who I would say I am. Like, mine is the ruler. So, I don't know. But, that's how I identify with these archetypes. Like, that is my character, it's my persona. So that's one way to do it. And sometimes your your startup, your company, is exactly the same archetype as yourself. Think about, all of the amazing brands out there that are a direct expression of their founders. Think of like McDonald's, Ford, Apple. I mean, all of those share the same personas as their founders, and that's fine. You can also start, obviously a company with a completely different persona and character. This is totally, your oyster to create. So, really, once you assign an archetype to your company, then you can start having fun with branding. And I'm going to show you examples of that. So I know it's kind of a lot to digest, but do you kind of see where this is going with these different types of archetypes? And I have a slide here too that shows brands plotted out. So you can kind of see too, like these are the quintessential brands that fit with these archetypes. The North Face is the explorer. Adidas is the hero. Apple is the magician. Harley Davidson is the rebel. The regular guy is IKEA. The jester is Skittles. The lover is Chanel. The ruler is Mercedes. The caregiver is Pampers. The creator is Adobe. The innocent is Dove. And the sage is Audi. So these brands have done an amazing job of carving out their space and really owning their archetype and their persona. And that is how that just informs and leads all of their expressions and communications and campaigns and everything. And what you don't want to do is like jump all over the place, right? Like you want to pick one, and then you just like you would with anything, you just keep it evolving and growing and working through that archetype's personality. So I'm going to take one of these out of here so you can kind of see, and by the way, this is all online. I can help you find this exact source that I have, but it's all online, so I would encourage you to, really kind of dive deep into all of these different archetypes. And here I'm just going to pull one of them out so you can see how this works. So I'm going to pull out the hero, which is Adidas. So this again is a template. I didn't come up with it. This is a tool that we use. We customize all of this for our clients and our projects, but this is accessible and available to you, and I really encourage you to, if you see one of these archetypes and you're like, oh, I think that's me, I think that's my business, then I would go on and get to this level of the archetype being blown out. So this is how this helps you set a foundation for your marketing, branding, social media, advertising, all of this. You see down at the bottom there's a hero color palette. Helpful. Great, because I could pick some of those colors and I don't have to like figure out my own colors. Those are colors that really speak to this hero energy and expression. These are some of the brands that, again, have really owned this hero space. So the theme of the hero is mastery, and their mantra is where there's a will, there's a way. Their brand voice is honest, candid, brave. So that will tell me, oh, interesting. I'm gonna write my advertising in this tone of voice, right? I'm gonna write my social media posts in this tone of voice. So example, brand message, we can make the world better. We have the grit and determination to outwork the rest. So that again is this motivational kind of like outcry that you can, tweak and take your own and start kind of using again, to sell your products and services. So there's a narrative too, and this helps also create, your brand story. So it explains that the hero's personality, the hero's main motivation is to prove their worth through courage and determination. They work hard in order to have the skills they deem requirements and take pride in their work that sets them apart from the rest. They need to meet challenges head on and carry defeats or failures until they're corrected. The hero wants to save the day to prove their worth to themselves, but also to the world, so that they know their ability. So again, this might help you really get some more insight, motivation, and really start defining how you are talking about your brand and your company in a consumer-facing way. So this is not, again, your mission or your vision or any of that stuff. That's totally separate from this. This is how is my brand going to communicate with my consumer set. You are going to be their hero, right? So this archetype's drive is mastery, courageousness, growth, development, defense. Their fear, like we said before, because brands are real, they're imperfect. Their fear is incompetence, cowardice, deterioration, downfall, and capability. And their strategy is become stronger and better, prove people wrong. So again, this helps bridge exactly your expressions, marketing, advertising, and motivation. So once you find the archetype that really fits your business, again, I would encourage you to explore in depth how you can start working with it and incorporating this language and messaging into your touch points with your consumers. Yes.
So when picking out an archetype for a company, like here we have Adidas and Nike
Yep.
in the same
Right.
style.
Uh-huh.
If we're between a few and we know and are aware of the direct competitor,
Yeah.
is it better to differentiate yourself from competition using a different archetype, or?
Yeah, I would say so. I mean, like, that's a good also exercise. You can go through your competitive set, your competitors, and you can plot them, right? And you can kind of like reverse engineer and say, oh, you know, my competitor, it seemed like they're talking about themselves as, you know, an explorer. Interesting. Maybe I don't want to do that because I want to do my ownable set of equities, right? So I would plot them on where you think that they're going and how they're relating and what characters that, you know, and tone and style and everything that they're using, and I would absolutely differentiate. Absolutely, because that's when brands get in big trouble. We worked on a big project for a huge granola brand. They couldn't understand why all of a sudden just sales like were horrible, if brand was in crisis. Well, we did an exercise where we went to all of their competitors' social media feeds and we snapshotted them all. We put them all on, you know, a page, and they were all exactly the same. There was like 12 different brands, and it's like, whose granola is this? We don't even know. And the consumer is super confused too, right? Like, it's just like, oh, here's a shot of granola with kids, and here's a, you know, it's like there's absolutely no differentiation. And they were all playing actually in, I can't remember which, that was a life driver exercise. But anyway, absolutely, because what happens is, the space becomes crowded, right? And brands, you know, really, especially even if you are a startup, in my opinion, whatever, disruptive brands, you know, win. I mean, they just do.
I see you're in as an outlaw.
Yeah, I think, yeah, exactly. So again, in looking at these, I would try to say, which one do I identify with my style, myself, as a founder, as a leader of my company, right? And then how do I want my business to connect with consumers? What role do I want them to play in their lives? And then you take that and you keep building. Okay. Just have. Okay. I don't know. I just put in Maverick because I like his confidence. But speaking of heroes, right? So just to recap, make sure you have your higher purpose in mind. Humanize your brand, and then you're going to be, you know, branding is an ongoing exercise. So you're just going to have to constantly monitor and foster, you know, your communications and in that feedback loop. Don't brand in a vacuum, and don't just assume your one-way branding is working. It's always that feedback loop and that two-way stream. And then here are just some really good sources of this. You know, The Start of You is an amazing book that is all about branding yourself. And the Hero Not Law loads out all of the archetypes, and then building a brand story speaks to humanizing brands. And then I have a brand cheat sheet. So a lot of these terms get thrown around, and there's even way more than these, but if this is helpful for you, it kind of just, dives into, all of the types of branding phrases that are out there. Does anyone have any questions or thoughts or?
So you said this is available to us to use, how would we access that?
Right, so just
Plug in.
Google brand archetypes, and you can pick and choose. There's so many different sources. Big consulting firms, but everything's readily available. And I would just, make sure that you're getting the ones that are just fully blown out into, yeah. I mean, you can buy the book and everything, but it might be a little bit too in-depth for you, for what you need. But really the goal is, again, to just use this as a tool to help really inform once you have your archetype. This is an amazing tool. If you give this to any marketing agency or creative or whatever, they'll be like, oh, thank God, this is perfect. This is such rich territory. They would know exactly how to execute off of this and give you your ownable, brand set, because at least you have this chosen for them in that direction, right?
Is there any big difference between product-based businesses and service-based businesses in terms of the way you build your brand?
I would say no. I mean, I guess if it's super specific B2B wise or something, this is more, again, consumer brands.
Yeah.
But I don't think so. I mean, I think you look at all of the services that are coming up, like Calm app and a lot of these, a lot of tech products, but they're really positioning themselves more as more on a higher brand level as well. So I would say, yeah, you aren't just your service. I think you still need to grow your brand, right? I mean, Katie and I were talking about Community Action House, right? And it's that's great. I mean, they have all these services and they provide all these things, and and those are very specific, but it's what, brand is really important. What is really the brand about? How is the brand connecting? How, what happens if somebody else comes into town that, wants to offer those things as well, right? So it's always good to, again, think on that higher level that is, again, beyond your product or service. Ladder that up as far as you can.
Katie, what do you think the archetype for Community Action House is when you look at this map? I mean, I have my impression on what it is, but I'm wondering if it's the same as yours.
Yeah, that's interesting. I am kind of wavering between sage and caregiver.
Yeah, caregiver's the one that popped into my head, but I thought everyman was also pretty good.
Yeah.
For you guys.
Yeah.
And like Ben said, that's what we've struggled with, is we do so many things. How do we go beyond the service we're providing to this higher brand identity of who we are and not just what we're doing?
Great.
I struggle huge, if I were to do a self-branding exercise, using the archetype tool, I'm I can't put myself in one. I'm in a bunch of different ones.
Yeah.
I feel
And
myself all
Can there be a
around.
Renaissance man one?
you can create your own archetypes too. Sure, absolutely you can. If you don't like these 12, you can go off. But so I know, and unfortunately, I had this printed and it's too small to read, which is my fault. But once I feel you just spend a half hour on, seeing the blown out descriptions, I think you might, really be able to choose. Yeah, I mean, this is kind of hard because they're all, there's not a lot of detail, but once you see the profiles, you really get more of a what are you really connecting with?
I think if
what really speaks
I
to you?
focused in, you know, if I microscoped myself down, I could probably come down to one.
Right.
That would take a lot of work, I think.
The book you recommended, Donald Buller's Building a Story Brand,
Mhm.
is really awesome. He has some
Oh,
exercises in there that
Yeah.
step you through creating the story and the character.
Question, branding, I think typically has more of an external focus, it's looking at customers. But I'm wondering about internal, to what degree does your leadership in particular have to be consistent and genuine to what it is that you're projecting on the outside?
Absolutely. There's internal brand and consumer facing, right? So, and there's agencies that only do that as well. And I think that people kind of confuse those. But I can share some additional tools on that and the differences between internal and consumer, because that's a whole different world. And absolutely, internal brand. I mean, if you don't have one, then how are you going to connect or motivate with your team, right? Are you on the same page? Like, you know, you might, again, people just rely on their mission or their vision, but those things are in the modern day increasingly, I don't want to say they're not important, but there's just more dimensional ways to bring that to life, and your mission and your vision actually should be changing and adapting to how your brand is growing. So the equity building is absolutely an internal and an external facing exercise. For sure.
Typically, you'd have the same archetype internally and externally.
Not necessarily. No. And if you have you have an umbrella of, you know, if you have an umbrella company that has different sub-brands or whatever, each brand can have its own archetype. I mean, think about, like, you know, Frito-Lay, you know, they've got Cheetos, Doritos, you know, all of those have completely different archetypes.
How about, you mentioned B2B earlier, does the way you approach B2B clients differ than consumer-oriented companies?
I would say no, just because you are still trying to develop a relationship that should be on a human connective level. So I think that these still absolutely apply. I mean, sure, if you're selling like some widget that just fits into something that doesn't really have like a story, or, you know, or something that's just very like product, you know, focused only, then yeah, maybe that's not appropriate. But I think if you're developing relationships with other businesses and offering things of value, and you have competitors, then I think absolutely these all apply.
Great, thanks.
What are some ways that you can measure your brand messaging?
Yeah.
Okay. And like you talked a little bit about social media, you know, and I don't know if that's, you know, you gauge it by interaction from your social media posts, or
Yeah.
what are some ways that, yeah.
Sure. So brand engagement, I think, would be one of the main metrics that I would use. So that would be your engagement rate on your social media. So I think that Facebook does that for you automatically. So you want an engagement rate. The brands I work on have like 15% engagement rate, but I mean, you want anything below, above 0, right? To start. I mean, and you want to see it keep going up. I think is the trick there. If like you want consistency and you want it to keep going up, percentage wise. So engagement rate would be that. Brand awareness is the percentage of your target market that you're targeting that is familiar with your brand. So that's also a metric on social media. And same with brand recall. So that's kind of the other, I don't know how the algorithm does that one, but it will say, you know, your brand recall is X, and that means a consumer who saw your ad, like, will read 1 time or 3 times or whatever, will read what is the percentage of them that will remember it? Because what you don't want to do at that point, and I'm getting into like execution here, but impressions, is not the way you wanna measure anything, especially on a branding level. An impression just means you were served up something, and it doesn't say whether or not, the consumer has an opinion of it, right? It just means they saw it. So you're really just paying for impressions. So you really do want to, if I was wanting to know how my consumers thought about me, I would be looking at brand engagement, and that also includes comments, shares, likes, any type of brand participation. And then I have another slide if you find it helpful, but maybe we might get into that. This is again more execution. I could talk about this thing for a whole day. But so are you guys familiar with the marketing funnel? So this is kind of the modern funnel, which is an hourglass. So up here is probably where you guys are right now, transactional marketing. You're trying to lead to a purchase, okay? There's steps that you have to take to get there. Awareness is number one, and especially if you're a new brand or company, like, you have to have that. You have to be at the top of this funnel hourglass. Then you get into knowledge and interest, which we call consideration. So that would be, okay, I'm a consumer, I'm aware of your company. Okay, now I'm gonna take a step to learn more, so I'm gonna go to your website, I'm going to look at your social media, I'm going to check you out in some way. And then you have an intent to purchase that leads to your conversion or your purchase, right? So that's transactional marketing, so that leads from awareness all the way down to conversion. What people don't think about enough is the bottom up also leads to purchase. So this is relationship marketing. So advocacy, endorsement, referrals, loyalty, preference, and repeat purchases. So I will argue, if you don't have a brand, if you're not actively participating with your consumer base, you don't have any of this. So, so just get rid of all of this, and then, well, too bad for you, because now you don't have purchases coming up this way, right? So that is why you build a brand, and that is why you want to focus on the bottom of the hourglass. So, hope I didn't confuse you, and I'm here for further help. If you need me, you can find me. And I hope I gave you some challenging things to think about.
Thank you.
Yes, very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, sure.